So the question is training intensity, like how hard really I think is ultimately what the question is. You know, when we started in the 80s and 90s, there was no discussion on overtraining. That discussion did not happen. You went into a gym and you just crushed each other. And it wasn't until the last, 10 years that the topic was even relevant. My philosophies have kind of changed through the years. I'm gonna kind of summarize it this way though. So I believe when you train that, first of all, there has to be a set that really challenges your body. That means you're not leaving any reps in the tank. That means you're going to failure. That means you're using good form. So you're keeping stress where it's supposed to go. And that means you're pushing yourself probably beyond, like you're going to feel some pain, and that's actually when the set's actually going to start. So first of all, you have to have sets like that. That's number one. Now that leads to the next question. How many sets like that do you really need? Well, you got to take into account a lot of things. What can you recover from and things like that. But here's my general philosophy. Each exercise you do should have one set like that. So for example, let me show you how this looks in real life. So for example, today we trained legs. We got to the hack squat. And we did a bunch of sets where we weren't going to failure just to get us up to the heavy weight, because you don't want to just walk in and put the heavy weight on unless you want to tear something. So then we got to the heavy weight and we went to failure. We racked it, we counted to 20. We did another couple reps, we racked it, we counted 20. We did another couple reps. So we took that one set to failure, actually beyond failure. Every exercise you do, I believe, should have one set like that. Now, maybe you just stop when you go to failure and that's your set, but that level of intensity, you should do that every exercise. Now, if you start doing 2, 3, 4 sets like that, in my opinion, you're probably overdoing it. I have this philosophy called quality reps. So when I was powerlifting at Westside Barbell, and even at the East Livingston World's Gym in Columbus, where there was a lot of bodybuilders and powerlifters, there was something that really stuck out at me. The powerlifters that were doing all the singles, doubles, triples, and 4 reps were really strong. My training partner was benching in the 181s, and he was benching over 500. But they weren't very big. The powerlifters that were doing all the 8s and 10s and 12s accessory work were the big dudes, the Chuck Vogelpools that looked like a bodybuilder. Those were the dudes that looked awesome. And somewhere in the line, remember how popular 5 sets of 5 used to be? Those were some pretty big dudes too. The very first guy I ever met at World's Gym was a 5 sets of 5 guy. And he was a big, thick dude. So back then in my mind, I thought, now all these dudes that are doing 5s and above are all really big. All the dudes that are doing 4 and below are really strong, but they're not very big. So in my mind, I thought, I think there's probably a magic number there where you should probably be doing sets of 5 and beyond. Now, think about what I just said about intensity. So if you do 6 reps and you go to failure, you're meeting that 5, right? That 5 hard reps. So if you guys want to check out some really cool research, my friend Paul in the back and myself, we really like this guy. There's a guy named Chris Beardsley, and Chris calls it stimulating reps. So in Chris's writing, he talks about each set you do should have 5 stimulating reps. And the only way to do that is if you go to failure. So if you do a set of 10 reps, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 were stimulating reps. If you go to 10, but you left 2 in the tank, you didn't get your 5 stimulating. It has to be the failure. So that's what matters more to me. It's how many of those, I call them quality, or how many of those quality reps are you getting, right? So if you're leaving reps in the tank, you might only be getting a couple reps, because let's be realistic. If we go out here and we do dumbbell bench presses, and if you can do the 80s for a set of 10 and you stop at 8, are you really forcing your body to get any better? I don't think so. I think you could do that every week. And eventually what happens is your body it doesn't even need to produce as much force. So it gets more efficient. So I think of it as you got to have 5 quality reps. Now, let me take it another step further. then make the video a little longer for all of our YouTube friends. All right? Now, okay, there's a lot of research that shows going to failure with lighter weights and higher reps is the same as going with lower reps and heavier weight. So what do? Well, what happens when you go heavy all the time and you go to failure? You beat yourself up, that's right. So does it make sense to do all these sets of 5s and 6s all the time? You know, when you're young, you can probably get away with it, but I think that keeping some of that in is good, but you've got to be careful. Like when we did the hack squats today, we did sets of 6, right? Now, you've got to balance that by other rep schemes. So when we did the leg extensions today, we actually went a little crazy. We did sets of 30. But, you know, if you're going to use a lighter weight, remember what's key. How many stimulating reps you need? You need 5, right? So you've got to go to failure. So whether you're doing 15 reps, 20 reps, 25 reps, you got to go to failure. To get those 5 reps, you got to go to failure. When you're doing the heavier stuff, maybe you can leave a rep or 2 in a tank. Now, you could say, well, John, that scares me. I think I'll just do close to failure, and I'll just do 2 or 3 simulating reps, and I'll do a couple sets. That is an approach if you want to try that. It's probably not the most efficient approach, but it's probably a little bit safer, though. So there's probably some application of that, too. So here's what I want you to take home from that. The question was, how intense should I train? And this is my answer. Every set should have 1 set to failure. The rep range should be between 6 and 25. You've got to go to failure. If you're doing the 6, maybe you leave a rep in the tank. All right? Does that make sense? Is that something clear you can take home? And so if you're doing, say, 3 exercises for your shoulders, all 3 of them should have at least 1 set where you go to complete failure. And failure to me means good form. Like if you start going crazy and cheating, to me that's just the way to get injured in the long term. So light weights, failure. Heavier weights, close to failure, and at least 1 crazy set per exercise. That's kind of like a 20,000 foot view general. Does that help?